welcome listeners and even viewers. This is the latest Arcade Attack podcast, and we've got something very special today. First, we've got one person back with us. He's been with us in the past, Erik Wahlberg. Hello, Erik.
Hey, buddy.
Hey, and you've brought some friends with you today, so it's always a pleasure having you on, but you've actually gone above and beyond. You've got some of your old SEGA friends with you today, and we're going to have a really fun, hopefully a really fun, really insightful sort of round table chat about a game or a sort of series of games that I loved as a child, and we're big advocates of this game here at Arcade Attack. We spoke about it quite a lot. It's obviously Eternal Champions. And Erik, you obviously were the producer on, I think, on the second game. Is that right? On the Dark Side.
I was assistant producer on the Challenge from the Dark Side, and did a lot of design work. But from the SOA side, I was kind of in charge of the production, except for Mike, who would come in with a lot of high level stuff because he was, of course, juggling a lot. And then my counterpart, who was working on every single moment on the game, is right next to me here. So from the Sega Interactive side.
I can't wait. So it's going to be a proper, we've got some real SEGA legends here. So firstly, obviously got Erik Wahlberg here, had him on the past, really great interviews with him. So please check that out. And we've also got John Brandstetter, a real SEGA legend. Thank you for being here, John.
Thank you for having me here.
Thank you. And we've got Kich, amazing talent there from SEGA as well, and other companies. And obviously we've got Frank Lucero as well. Thank you, Frank.
Thanks for having me.
So, guys, we're going to whiz through lots of questions, and it should be really quite a fun little chat. And let's get the ball rolling. So, would you be all okay to explain what was your initial role, your kind of role, your responsibility on Eternal Champions, whether it was the first game or the Challenge from the Dark Side? So, Erik, I know you spoke about before, but really quickly, how would you explain your exact role?
Yep. So when I was a tester, I was assigned to be an on-site QA for Eternal Champions Genesis, and I was testing the game every day for months on site. And then I got the additional kind of credit and work of game balancing, because the game was such a rush job to get this very ambitious project out with a lot of features. And so I was focused on trying to improve the gameplay as much as possible. So I was game balancer and tester. And then for Eternal Champions CD, as I'd mentioned, I was assistant producer at that time. And God bless Mike Latham. He gave me the opportunity to overhaul the gameplay, add combos, add kind of super/special moves that did not require inner strength, and a lot of the other kind of gameplay combat elements, and some of the actual move sets for some of the characters as well.
Thank you. John, are you happy to lead on as well?
Yeah, I mean, I actually was one of the producers that was brought in from another company before this, and one of my first things was working on this title, work with marketing a lot on the first one, and keeping some of the characters in the game, because marketing tried to remove our scantily clad women in the game, which weren't so scantily clad, but that was the thing that marketing pushed back when we were hitting the deadline for the first one. And a lot of the stuff with the first one, I came in towards the end because I actually was at a competing company before this, and had come in to work on this at SEGA. And then there were some design changes we made down at the production company, which we were the production company that actually created this whole game down in Los Angeles. And then I was the lead, I guess, design along with Erik on the second one for SEGA CD, and ran that entire team for this product. And Frank and Kich were also part of that, and they're part of my team that worked at SEGA Interactive in Los Angeles. And we're kind of like a black box team. We did a lot of high-end stuff for SEGA, and some stuff never saw the light of day, but Eternal was our key product. And then other products we did down there were various other titles everyone would know, but I guess we can talk about it some other time. But I let Frank jump in, or Kich jump in if they want to say anything too.
Yeah, so Kich, you happy to sort of elaborate a bit on your role?
Yes, I started the SEGA CD, so the Dark Side. It was my first game actually, working in the game industry. Wow. And I was so excited, and I love fighting, games. So it was really, really awesome. Yeah, I love the team. Yeah.
Thank you very much. And Frank, last but not least.
Yeah, I mean, at the time I was a programmer, and I have some very,
His
very.
connection looks like it dropped.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you, Frank.
Okay, good. Yeah, at the time I was a programmer, and I was brought into a small company called Interactive Designs, which got acquired by SEGA. And we got brought in to do Eternal Champions. A very good friend of mine, and I'm very sad that he's not here, was, and whose name must be mentioned, was John Kwai. John Kwai was our lead. He was a very good friend of mine, and we were friends before he ever started at SEGA or I ever started at SEGA. He taught me a lot about how to program and how to do what I was doing, and he kind of brought me in and mentored me a lot when I was having trouble. But at the time, I was doing whatever I could do to help out. I mean, I know that sometimes the game would need balance changes, and I'd go in and start tweaking AI or working with characters and trying to make sure that they were actually fun, or implementation of a lot of things, like little things like the credit sequences need to be done, so I got to do the credit sequences, or helping Lashire with the battle room, or whatever things that I got brought in to help on with. But John was our fearless leader, and John would come in and go, I need X, Y, and Z, and we'd come in and be like, okay, we'll do it if we can to make that happen. So it was a blast. One of the best teams that I've worked with. Honestly, I've been doing game development for 35 years now, and I still look back on this game fondly, even though it was crazy sometimes, but
Yeah.
it was a lot of fun. Sorry.
Thank you. I'd love to, yeah, so just to go in a bit more detail, really, I'd love to sort of go around the ring quickly and maybe talk about the development of Eternal Champions or Challenge from the Dark Side and how it came about. Because I think Eric, you said right at the start, it was very ambitious. There was a tight deadline. It sounds quite stressful, but obviously very fun kind of way of making a game. But are you happy to sort of go around the room, sort of chip in with each other and sort of describe that crazy few months of making a very iconic and very fun fighting game? So Eric, are you happy to get things really moving?
Yeah, well, so I came in when Eternal Champions was probably around alpha already, and the big thing, looking back, knowing kind of the history of it, is they didn't have very long to make a game that was going to compete with Street Fighter and Mortal Kombat, and on top of that, Mike Latham had extremely ambitious design, as Frank mentioned, things like a battle room, which was inspired by like the X-Men, and all these other modes and many moves and new systems, and that the team just killed it with this beautiful giant characters and great music for what you could do with Genesis. And it was a push, though, because I think as much as Mike Latham loved fighting games, I think that he needed to kind of marinate his designs to make them so they were fun. And we didn't have a lot of time to do that. So the Genesis one was, again, where I kind of leaned in when I was tester and I said, hey, I see a lot of kind of discrepancies or imbalances. Can I do something to help? And so he kind of allowed me that. And I don't know if it was John Kwai or somebody gave me access to, collision boxes and some frames of animation and stuff to kind of tweak it, as well as just calling out stuff. So that was the first game. Very proud of it because it did really, really well sales wise. But to me, and again, this is 4 of us here, so I'll make it short. When I worked on Eternal Champions Sega CD, that to me was an absolutely amazing opportunity to basically, as you say, kind of remaster, upgrade the game in all ways. And it was super ambitious. Tons of characters, way more kills. Again, the big part for me as a fighting game person and someone that wanted our players to enjoy the game was to go in and create actual combos. You can combo off of jump kicks and hard strikes. You can do long combos. You can also do moves when you didn't have inner strength that required dexterity, right? We integrated all the quarter and half circle move stuff so that you had a variety of both hold down 2 buttons and use inner strength, and also skill-based stuff. And I was also on site for that. That was, both those games were drained. I probably would have died if I was this age, but it was a ton of fun, living at the hotel, eating steak every day for free because, that's what they did. But it was great. And to your point and to Crank's point, what an amazing team. Every single person was fantastic. And I do wish John was here and Lash Hour was here, and some of the animators. Like, it was a great team. And Nancy and Rod, the owners, were just the best. I loved working on the game. And I'll stop there because there's 4 of us.
How about you, John? Have you got any development stories, or how do you sort of reflect on that time?
Yeah, be
I mean,
careful.
it was kind of organized chaos. I mean, I had to basically herd the sheep and make sure everybody was on track, and then make sure we had food for everybody, and make sure that we had the hotels, because we had people working 24 hours a day, and managing this thing from a corporate standpoint. Kalinsky was all over me about making sure this was going to be a hit title, and also same with the second one. We had to make sure that that was going to be a hit title, but that was mainly it was deemed as a platform seller. That's kind of where this game came from, and because fighting games were strong at this time, that was the real market, and that's why this game came about. And we had to keep the vision clear and strong the entire time. So we did have some clashes between me and Mike on some things, and sometimes Eric and so forth. But yeah, ultimately the game turned out great, and we got the great game. And the second one was our opportunity to make the game even better. And then we were working on a third and working on a fourth, but those didn't get to happen. But we're still talking about those types of things to this day.
I'm definitely going to ask about the unreleased games towards the end, if that's right. So that's a little.
That's fine. Yeah.
Yeah, well, that'd be a really good little keep listening, keep watching, guys, because I'm really excited to find out maybe why the games didn't come out. Thank you, John. That sounds really interesting. Kich, how about yourself? Any development stories you'd like to reflect on and share?
Yeah, for me, I started as the artist, and I was trained to be more like traditional fine art painters, drawers, and video game was pretty new for me. Like, I had some little background in digital stuff, but then I started to join the team, and they taught me how to use the luck animation, the luck paint, and the limitation of the pixel. Like you can allow to use a certain pixels to paint your characters and to animate them, and it was a very challenge for me. And I thought of it, and at the time it was very challenging. And I came across that because I was trained with impressionistic painting style, so I recognized how to use the pixel. So like the pointillism, that kind of technique. Every dot, like you put an orange and a red and yellow next to each other, become orange. So that works for me. So I use that to create, to paint the characters.
It was an art form. I mean, I remember looking at the artwork on the screen, and they would draw it on the computers. And I'm sorry to jump in on you, Kich, but they were geniuses with the work that they did, because you'd look at something on the monitor and it looked very pixelated. It didn't look very good. But when you actually saw it on the composite, when you saw it on a TV, when you saw it on a CRT monitor, it would bleed. The pixels would bleed into each other. So suddenly you'd get this fine shading where it looked. So and Kich and the art staff was just amazing at getting the best of what you could possibly get with the technology you had. I mean, they had what is it? 8 colors. There's 16 colors to play with. It was ridiculous.
16 colors.
That's mad.
We also, the others, if you look at the first game versus the second game, the art looks the same, but it's actually very different. And we cleaned it up a lot in the second game. So the first game, I didn't think the characters were as well defined. And then we actually brought in some old stuff from when I worked arcade stuff. We brought in some RGB monitors for the staff to look at the stuff, so we could see actually how crisp the stuff would look if it was an arcade game. So we were looking at that at one point also. But NTSC, as everybody knows, red is a big problem with NTSC. Yeah. In Europe, I'm not sure on PAL what problems you guys have with that, but we always had problems with red, and it would just turn to mud or it would turn to brown, and we had to deal with a lot of those problems. And so we looked on the second one, and part of the first one was too late to fix it on the first one, but we brought in some RGB monitors and hooked up Genesis to RGB monitors to try and clean up the art, or to get rid of like the dirty dithermation kind of stuff that was there. And then Kich and all the other artists, worked hard to clean all this stuff up, because it looked muddy Sometimes, and we try to make it look really clean with the second one versus the first one. So if you have anything else.
And I would like to mention that all the artists in the team, everyone was so great to work with, and most of them are actually coming from art center, same school.
Mhm.
So sometimes we work in the game and we talk about our teachers, at art center, and like the art director, everyone is a lot of us like from the same school,
That's amazing. Yeah.
and everyone, programmers, leader like John, and everyone, it was so much easy to work with, and almost like a family to me at that time. Yeah.
And Frank, you're involved in the sort of was it producing or programming? I think it was. And how was that?
Oh, I was programming at the time.
Yeah,
No production work for me. That was
Sorry, yeah.
that was all John and Erik on
course,
the
yeah.
publishing side for over at SEGA. So my involvement was mainly on the programming side. I didn't do as much work on the first Eternal Champions. A lot of that was balancing an AI and that sort of thing, gameplay. But on the second game, I got pulled in because there was just so much work to do. So I was trying to do whatever I could just to support. Like I said, we had fantastic programmers in that team. John Kwai, who needs to be mentioned, of course. Ayla Diaz, who needs to be mentioned.
Tony
Ikeda, and Steve Lashauer, so many. And quite honestly, I was probably one of the most junior of the whole team. I was very, very young at the time. I think I was 20. I think I had just turned 20.
Wow.
It was my first game development job, and I was trying to do whatever I could to jump in and support as much as I can. John would come in and would tell us what we had to do and why we had to do. He would explain the design of the game and what needed to be accomplished and how it needed to be accomplished. And the funny thing is like I feel like my role at that time was more about trying to just relieve any pressure valves that were going off, because there was so much stress, there was so much work to be done. And it was a good thing. I don't want to make it sound like it's negative, because there was a lot of passion for the game. People wanted the game to be really, really good, and we knew we were trying to tackle a lot. And we had two options: either don't and not try to tackle a lot and do a poor job, or do it and do a good job. And I mean, I remember John. I'd come in and I'd go home and I'd come back and John had not left. He was there for days on end. I mean, there were times when I didn't think he left.
I didn't. Yeah, and one time I had a toothache that went on for 3 months, and I didn't go to the dentist because I was dealing with the game.
Yeah.
So
he wouldn't go to the dentist because he was our shield. He was the guy that came in, and when we had issues, we brought him to him, and he tried to do his best to solve them. So
do you guys remember that weird thing that I would do? I go in my office and close the door and watch that Barney tape.
Oh my God.
Do you remember that or no?
No, I don't. What?
Oh God, yeah. That meant don't come in the office. I'm watching. It was Barney. It was a VHS tape of Barney Pirate, and it was just some dumb thing, and I watched it to calm myself down. I was dealing with
that would make me more mad.
Yeah. Well, it made everybody know that if they heard that, at least Kawhi knew for sure. Don't come in the office. Yeah.
Well, as an outsider, and again, a lot of stuff. It's great for me because I can look at it now from a more mature perspective and a more experienced perspective. I think they hired the right people at that company, the right temperaments, and they had professional, experienced people kind of towards the top, and then really passionate, also skilled people at the bottom, so to speak. And that team all together with John given lots of credit for managing that in a way that people kept motivated, but also didn't stress out, but also, were committed to making it a good game. And so they were all the right pieces together. And it helped also that Mike Latham was in charge of it overall, in that he pushed, here's my design, to every freaking part of it. And so, and a lot of times you would get interference from some other executive that would slow that down. But it was a huge game with a lot of features, but we did pretty much everything. Like, this game didn't go out until it was done. which is pretty much unheard of. The negative part, if I can just kind of, I guess, dovetail off of that, was that it made it come out later than it's supposed to. And although I don't think it would have done much better at that time, PlayStation 1 was out with Toshinden, and everyone was looking towards 3D stuff. And then, oh, here's Eternal Champions now on the Sega CD. So I think we're on a platform that was far from strong. I think they had, was it 2 million sales or something of that hardware? And then coming out even late in the cycle didn't help. But what a freaking fabulous game. It got so many great reviews. It was on 7 magazine covers, believe it or not.
That's incredible, yeah.
And so they did great. So, but I wanted to start off and just say, from my perspective, what a great team they were, all of them. And also I love these guys. A lot of these people I'm in touch with on Facebook stuff, and I really appreciate kind of having them in the peripheral of my life still.
Well, let's talk actually, because obviously Eternal Champions came out on the Mega Drive or Genesis originally, and it was competing against a sort of growing genre at the time. The fighting genre was getting bigger and more established, and arguably the biggest genre in the world at one point. I mean, I was obsessed by Street Fighter 2. I love Mortal Kombat. I still enjoy those games, but for me, I still really enjoyed Eternal Champions. But what was it like? What was, obviously those two juggernauts in the background, that must have added some pressure, or did that keep you on your toes at all, or did it even influence certain characters or moves, or did you try and move away from it? I know sometimes people accuse overkills as like finish move, from like fatality moves from Mortal Kombat. I'd love to get your idea about the influences and the idea that those two massive games that actually help or kind of hindered, you think, Eternal Champions. What do you think, Eric, for example?
Yeah, so by the time we did Eternal Champions Sega CD, I'll say that Mike certainly wanted to differentiate himself from the other fighting games, which is why he wanted a lot of kind of button press using inner strength special moves. It was more of a superhero slugfest of single powerful moves, but then it did evolve into more of a combo system. In line with most games, but you have Art of Fighting, which is the first game that had this kind of power meter for special moves, and that's kind of I think very similar, or maybe even inspired Mike for that. Then you had, when I was able to add the skill-based Street Fighter moves, so you had quarter circles, half circle stuff. Had a power combo that you could do. It was very much inspired by Killer Instinct. Where we'd string together existing ones, so that's in there too. And then, of course, you had later on vendettas, which are fatalities. And so the game was kind of all the fighting games ultimately at the end of the day, but it had its own incredible depth. But was my experience and my perspective and how I try to lean into it. I'm really proud of how it turned out, but I think the biggest challenge was we didn't have a huge staff, and we didn't have nearly enough time to do what these other companies had. I mean, Street Fighter, they worked on it for a decade probably by the time that they, were doing Street Fighter 2 Turbo or something. So,
how about yourself, John? You had to manage this. You had the pressure of like new Street Fighters and Mortal Kombat's coming out, and new games Art of Fighting. And what was it like trying to channel it all together?
Well, mainly it was trying to keep marketing from having me throw shit in the game that was going to destroy the game, or we had lots of arguments sometimes, with the basic of the creators, which is me, Eric, and Mike, which were like, is we need to add this in, we need to throw the kitchen sink in, we need to add this in, we just saw this in. No, we can't. We got to make what we're making. And there's stuff that did happen. I mean, honestly, when you make a game of this type, or any console game, in a lot of ways, pretty much the last 6 months of the game, you actually threw everything away from before that. So the real things that happen when you make a game like this, and when you get into crunch time, is actually when the real game gets made. So the crunch time was a nightmare, but it actually helped fix a lot of things in the game, and a lot of changes happened in the last 6 to 8 months of any development game. This game, a lot of good times between the team, and if me and the team argued about stuff, or I had to shield them from some stuff that came down from Mike, or me and Eric would disagree about something sometimes, and then I had to not tell Frank and not tell John what was really going on, or I went up to a marketing meeting and was told, hey, we can't have these characters in the game, and I told marketing, well, too bad. This is a game, and we're selling this game. And this sounds kind of weird in this day and age, but I mean, our market was as well as male game players. So I wasn't, we weren't going to neuter the game to make a marketing decision which would have hurt the game. So I think that was good that we kept it that way, and
So
it
they
helped
wanted
us
to remove some of the female characters. Is that true? That's
They
originally.
wanted to dress them differently or remove them completely, and that was an issue. And we went back and forth with marketing a few times, and then even in some of those meetings, I met with Kalinsky afterwards, and Kalinsky is like, "Yeah, this is our market," so that's what we did. And
Right. Yeah.
I had some pushback from my management. It's like, why did you go up there and do that? And it's like, well, because otherwise the game's not going to come out, and the game's not going to be as great as it's going to be. So it has to be what it is. So we were, a console fighting game, which there really wasn't one per se, but I mean, I did work on one before this at TurboGrafx, which was called Riot Zone. But that was more of like a Streets of Rage type game. So this was more like being a Street Fighter type game or a Mortal Kombat type game, and it was for console, and we were deemed to make this console sell with this game, and that's what this game was. And then the second one was really initially to sell Sega CD. So we were big push for us was to meet Christmas for the launch of Sega CD's Christmas push with Toys R Us, because we were going to be a pack-in at one point. It didn't happen, but
Oh wow.
we were supposed to be a pack-in, and that's why we had really hard deadlines. And I had to push, drive the horses as hard as possible to get to the deadline, and that's what we did. And it turned out great. It about killed all of us, me, Mike, Eric, John, Kawhi, everybody. And but it turned out great. And then even the audio, which we don't have anybody here from the audio team, but the audio from the first one to the second one is completely different. And Tristan took a lot of direction from me for the kind of club type soundtracks or rave type soundtracks. That was really me pushing Tristan to get what I really wanted, because I thought the music was really something in this game when we did it. The punching and the kicking sounds and so forth, I wish we could have made them much stronger, but that's the limitations of the technology back then. And then,
if I can interrupt real quick,
Yeah.
Adrian, I don't know this is back then. The way you create sound effects were different, and so I would go into John's office and I would punch and kick them. They would record it, and they would just find the best sound effects from when I would hit them. And Kich would say like, "Kick him again." No, it's all a bad joke. I will stop.
Yeah.
Go ahead, John.
no, go ahead. I mean,
That was it. I'm done with it.
But the sound was a big deal, because I mean, what gets you pumped? A great soundtrack. I mean, that's what the big thing was. And then I don't know if you want us to separate Eternal 1 or Eternal 2 when we're talking about this, but Eternal 2 we were able to do a lot more with sound and a lot more with visuals, and we weren't really limited on memory in regards to what we could load, but we on the first one we were limited to the cartridge is it, and that's it, and you're stuck with that. So I think that both of them turned out great. I think the second one was even greater, and I think that we cleaned up pretty much everything that we could to make the second one better than the first one. But that's about it. And then talking about the artists again, Kich was one of the traditional artists. We also had an artist named Steve Knotts, which actually was amazing artist, and the cowboy character is kind of based off Steve in the game. So Steve actually used to do a lot of he used to do a lot of ads for Marlboro and different high-end ad companies. That he had a lot of magazine covers on his own. But Steve is this 6'3" or something dude that looks like Dawson, and he looks like he'd hand your head to you. I mean, he's this giant guy, but he's the nicest, sweetest guy. And then he went on to work on Abe's Odyssey afterwards. But he was a great guy. And then pretty much the entire art team was great. And we were pushing for some of the stuff in the second one. We were getting really gory, and so we had some artists that were kind of averse to what I wanted. But what I wanted was, we got close to what I wanted, but what I wanted was even more gore.
You wanted to go above and beyond Mortal Kombat, basically. Is that fair?
Oh, we were going to.
did.
We did, I think,
Yeah,
back then, but we wanted to go even farther, and then there were some other ideas for some other games later that we wanted to go a lot farther, but sometimes finding the artists that would want to do that was a little bit tricky. So
who was the artist? Who was the artist, John, that worked on the most of them? Because I remember somebody who turned and told me that he really just wants to work on Garfield. Like he was so just covered. Every day was gore and him moving over.
Yeah, I can't remember. I know who you're talking about, but I can't remember his name right now. But
Art Wong?
we had, which one?
Was that Art Wong? Because Art Wong.
I think it was Art. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because Art
was on
worked
Garfield for a while.
Yeah, and he was working on Bonkers too. We had Bonkers and those other games too. So it's something a little less crazy. But we had one or two artists that actually left while we were doing the game, because we were, what I wanted was, and I don't know if this works in a podcast or not, but I mean, that Kurt Cobain thing happened about the time we were making this game. That was something. It's like, look, when we have the shotgun thing, that's what I want, and that, that was some artists looked at me like I, was the devil, but that's what we were looking for, because this is a fighting game about killing. I mean, that's what it is. So.
And I hate to keep interrupting, but I think this hopefully adds to the conversation. Is there's Maximilian Dude, if you guys know him from YouTube, he has crazy amount of followers now. About 9 years ago, he was at the with another group, and they played through Eternal Champions Sega CD, and they even have highlights of all the kills. And the guy freaking says, "I freaking love this game." Right? They loved it. Their reactions of all the kills, 500,000 views.
Wow!
And for whatever your part is for inspiring and helping to guide these horrible kills, still got attention many years later. So kudos to, of course, the artists who created them.
Well, I mean, it was interesting, right? Because it wasn't trying to be gory for the sake of being gory. It was trying to be realistic. It was trying to be like what it would be if something like this were to take place. And it was tough to hear, tough to see sometimes, but that's what we were going for. We were going for what we wanted.
And the end result was, because it was a game, people were thrilled, because you watch the reactions and it was like, whoa, and there's always one extra or two extra things beyond which you think it's over, and like, oh my god, and, it's a thrill, because you're still playing a game, and it's like, oh my god, I can't believe that they did that. That's kind of the reaction in a good way, in a like, that's hilarious, right?
Which is the one where he falls down the pit and he just keeps getting shredded more.
Yeah, it keeps going and going. Yeah,
my favorite one. That's Midnight's kill. Yeah.
Well, you just go through a meat grinder. And the good thing about this team, I remember very distinctly, is that we worked in such close quarters together. Everybody was near each other. So when people were working, you could see what they were doing. You could look over their shoulder and you could participate. So these things were being done in real time, and people would walk by and, oh my God, or let's try this. So you felt, even if you weren't doing the work or drawing the art, you felt as if you were a part of it, because your feedback was listened to. And of course, usually it's John over there going, "I want more." No, it's not really what you like. I want more.
Yeah. Well, when Steve made that tiny turbo thing, you remember that? I don't know if you remember that or not, but
the tiny turbo.
That was me. Yeah, but the big thing too is, I mean, it was like a summer camp kind of, computer camp kind of scene, where the cubicles are all there and everybody's, you can just walk through the corral and see everybody. Whereas, games made today, it's like, some guy over there is doing the art and some guys across the ocean doing the gameplay or whatnot, and everybody's operating in a vacuum. So it's not like this. If somebody sees something, like, one of them might go, "Hey, this might not work," or, "Oh, that's cool, maybe I'll make this other thing better." So that was kind of a cool thing, and we're there. And then, since we're pretty much running 24 hours a day, and I mostly was there, so Frank had come in, John had come in, I'd been there all night. But during the night, I'm talking to Eric and Mike sometimes, or in the morning I'm actually rushing to the airport to send Mike and Erica overnight counter to counter. Do you remember those?
Yes, I do.
And those were, you know, nightmares. And then to build a game back then, to build, what I mean is to compile the game. Doesn't work like it does now. It's, you know, 2 seconds and it's done. You know, hit go and pops out the other end. When we do a build, we got to transfer all the files to John's computer, build the build, and then me and John, after everybody goes home for the day, are there for another 3 hours doing the build to do the compile and make sure everything works. And then after that, when I was doing those CDs to send you, Eric, I'm there for another 4 hours laying out the tracks on the damn CD by hand. And the tools were kind of crap because we had this room where we had the CD writer, and this is for the second one, but for the CD writer, and the tools were kind of really hokey, and the disc would pop out. We didn't know, did it work? Did nothing. Sometimes it would come back and say finished, complete, but sometimes the disc had just popped out and you'd have a cursor and we have no idea what's going on. But it took in real time to burn those discs, sometimes up to 2.5, 3 hours per disc to burn them. And then to copy the stuff to the writer itself took, God, I don't know, an hour just to copy. And that's, you know, that's like 500-600 megabytes. I mean, you do that in a tenth of a second now, but that's how long it took to do this crap. And then every time we burned a disc, you know, that some of those discs back then were those tire Udin discs, and those discs were $500-600 a crack, and we had a trash can full of them because sometimes they were not burning properly. So it was much more complicated back then. And then you know, the team put up with my, you know, shit a lot of times, which I thank them for that, doing that.
I'm sorry,
And,
John. I'm going to tell you a Johnny Turbo story. Great Johnny Turbo story. So John is over here trying to get builds done. Right? He needs to burn CD. He needs to get builds out. We got to get stuff over to Sega up north. Happened a lot, and these CDs were very expensive, and they would fail a lot. And they were so expensive. We were burning through these things, and we were getting complaints because it's like, why are you burning through so many CDs? Why are you wasting them? Why are you using so many? And Johnny was like, because we need them. There's a high failure rate, blah, blah, blah. All of the right stuff, all of the legitimate things. And I remember one night, and I'm not sure how I got particularly involved in this one, but we had to get a build out. And Johnny was like, we got to get a build out. It's got to go. It's got to happen. And I'm like, John, they locked the CDs up in this one little cabinet because they're so expensive. They didn't want to use them. They locked them up, and Johnny's like, "You got to get it done. You got to get it." And if I remember correctly, we felt bad because he had not left in like 6 days, and then he had to take a flight, and he wasn't there for this particular build. And I was like there, so he goes, "Go get the build done." And this is, I'll admit it now, but I'll never admit it then. I broke in to the server room. Broke in because it had a security door with a card. My card didn't work. I broke into the security room, broke into the closet, got the box of CDs out, and went to burn the build because it needed to be done.
Yeah.
And John saved my ass because, like, the next day they're like, "Who broke into the server room?" And John's like, "We needed that build and it needed to happen." And it was and those stories, like, looking back, like, horrified, but now, oh my God, hilarious. It's like one of my favorite Johnny Turbo stories.
Well, I don't know if you remember on the first one when there was some CES thing. Eric, do you remember the CES? We had to show it at CES, the first cartridge or something like that.
For the Genesis.
Yeah. So that build wasn't ready till the night of CES or something like that. And I'm getting missiles thrown down to me from Kalinsky and Mike, and yeah, you probably didn't know about it, but then me and John are there burning the ROM at, you know, the office, and I think it was like Tuesday or something if CES is going on, and I'm getting calls like, "Where's the build? Where's the build? Where's the build?" I'm like, "Look, we're working on it." And this is the cartridge one. And then I got tasked with driving that thing out to Vegas. So me and John went to Vegas, and I'd been up for days for that one, doing the stuff with John to finish that one. And we were driving to Vegas, and, you know, I was so tired. I went to like hyperspace, like while we were driving, and the world stretched out. And then we pulled over to the side of the road, and I sat there for about 20 minutes till we could drive to Vegas the rest of the way to deliver this build for CES. And I was just like, oh my god, that was so bad. But we had no choice because there was no way to get that cartridge to the thing safely, and somebody had to hand deliver it to somebody to show somebody for a marketing meeting at CES to make the sales. So that's
And I have who did you go with? Who was in the car with you?
Kawhi went with me.
So I could imagine a scenario where you crash the car and you die, and then Kawhi just like gets a taxi cab and continues on.
Yeah.
Everybody absolutely killed themselves. And John, I remember you always being tired, and so you were absolutely Purple Heart warrior for that team. So thanks for helping make all that stuff happen, man. Because especially the Sega CD version was fantastic and a push, and you're right there at the top.
Well, the Sega CD one, there is that that hidden thing that was kind of my thing at the last minute to basically say, hey, this is the real guys here working on this game. So I don't know if you remember that, but that
which one was that?
That Eternal Champion, that video.
Oh, I do remember.
Yeah. So you guys didn't notice what I did, but because I'd mastered stuff at NEC before and I knew how the tracks laid out, SOA didn't notice that the disc grew by almost 100 megabytes on the final. And so when we submitted the final, me and John stuffed in that video, which I saw. The first digital cameras was one of those Sony Mavica things that took floppy disks. So like the week of that last, we're finishing the game, I walked around with that Sony Mavica, took pictures of Frank and Kich and everybody, and then we made this weird little spinning cube video that we didn't tell anybody about for years. It's in Eternal CD, and it says the real Eternal Champion. We all look like hell in a handbasket in that video, but that's in there.
How do you unlock it? Is that like an Easter egg you can unlock?
It's an Easter egg you can unlock. We released the Easter egg years later to friends of mine at Tips and Tricks, but it's a pretty hard thing to pull off. But people do have it online, and you can see it. And it's a spinning cube. Yeah,
I have no idea. I do not remember how to unlock that.
Yeah, it's pretty hard, but there's somebody's got a video up of it. But you remember what I'm talking about? It's like that was that last thing, and was it John was like, no, there's no way. I'm like, John, it will work. I know how the tracks are laid out. They're not gonna look. They're not gonna look. They're gonna look at the file size. I'm like, they're not gonna look. And then we shoved it in there, made it in the final disc, but it wasn't in any of the approved final discs until the very final master gold that I sent in. And it was it was something there to be discovered later, because we're just like, man, we worked so hard on this thing. We want people to eventually see this thing. So yeah, it's kind of one of those weird Easter eggs. So.
That's awesome you did that.
It's really cool. Guys, I've got to go really quickly around the room here. I want to ask favorite character from any of the Eternal Champions games, and also favorite, I think, overkill. Is that the right word we can use? Or
there's overkills and sudden deaths, which are kind of the same thing. We had super background in the Sega CD version.
Yes, finishing moves basically.
And
so
overkills and vendettas. There's 4 different types of ways to kill somebody.
It's mad, isn't it? That is literally showing Mortal Kombat how it's done. But any sort of finishing killer move at the end and favorite character, Eric, quickly, who would you choose out of any of the universe?
So I don't know how many characters Kich did, but Chinwo is one of my favorite. Monkey Kung Fu, smooth animations, effective moves, super cool. I like Ramses a lot as well. And I guess if I had to pick a third, to go old school, I'll probably go Larson. My favorite kill, there's so many, but my favorite one we mentioned earlier is the midnight, not the sudden death, the whatever the secondary.
Shaft one you're talking about, right?
The shaft, because here's what's great about it, for people who are listening who probably haven't seen it, but it's online, is essentially it's a trap door, you fall through a trap door, and there's a plethora of axes and saws and blades and whirling bits, and the body goes through it, and you hear carvings, and it comes through, and there's this basically flayed body with some loose body parts, and it hits another one, and then there's less body parts, and then it hits another one. There's less body parts. There's like 3 body parts left. Like, why am I still watching this?
And you think it's done, but it happens again.
Go through one more, and all you get is a skull with no skin on it at all.
Yeah,
and it goes all the way to the bottom and hits the ground and it's done. And when you watch that with someone, and also keep in mind, if you're doing this in a 2-player game, somebody's the victim of that. And so they're watching themselves die in slow motion, and the reactions are just the best. There's many, but that's my favorite.
Frank, have you got a favorite character and favorite kill in the games?
Okay, I'm going to tell you the character and why, and the why is not that great, but I'm going to tell you anyway. My favorite character is Trident. Trident was awesome because he had this move where he lunges Trident, he lunges hands out, and it for a very long time before we fixed the balance of it, it would just knock anybody over. It was just like the be all end all. I'm going to end you. I'm just going to forward punch with Trident, and I would just abuse people with that when we did our play. That's just abuse, and they get so mad. It was hilarious to me. So that's why I like Trident. My second favorite character would probably be Shadow, because there was another programmer on the team named Steve Lashour. Love Steve Lashour, great guy, and he was doing some of the AI for the characters, and he would come in and be like, "All right, Frank, beat my Shadow now," and I'd get in there and I'd one-hand it, just crush it, and he'd get so mad he would toss the controller, and then he'd go back, and like 3 days later he'd come back and say, "Hey, play my Shadow now," you know. And this would go on for weeks and weeks, and I would just crush him. But my favorite thing to do with Steve is actually not necessarily with Shadow, but with whatever character he was playing, is he hated the one where the dinosaur came in. I think it was Slash. Big dinosaur head would come in and munch on you. And to humiliate him, I'd be like, You're getting munched. You're getting eaten by the thing you hate the most.
A personal vendetta. I love it. That's so funny.
It's funny because that's like my way of contributing to the game at that time was playing the holy hell out of it, exposing the really big obvious flaws, and abusing the team so bad with them that they wanted to fix them because they wanted me to stop and they couldn't make me stop.
Well, we had that low block problem. You remember that low block defeat problem we found? Yeah, and that was something that we had to change a bunch of stuff because of that low block problem. But
oh my god,
we fixed almost all of those though. Also, most all of those eventually got fixed.
Yeah,
which I'm thankful for. So you couldn't cheat people by the time we were done.
Yeah,
but I mean, it's like everyone was so busy. There was so much to do. That a lot of these things that were super important didn't get taken care of because there was so many other things to do. Right. So you had to keep track. I mean, nowadays, we'd put Post-its on the board, or we'd create Jira tickets, or whatever you pick management structure you had. But in those days, it was do it. You do it. Johnny yells at you, and you get yelled at enough, and you do it.
Yeah.
Well, the others we had to, make, it sounds terrible. The fake it till you make it thing. I mean, we're just trying stuff until it worked, too, a lot of times. And then
a lot of learning.
Yeah.
Love it. How about you, Kich? You obviously designed and did the artwork for many characters. And have you got a personal favorite as well?
Yeah, I did Chinwoo and the monkey and Riptide from scratch. So if I have to pick one between Chinwoo and Riptide, so I'm still debating. Maybe Riptide.
Right. Yeah.
I put myself into it a little more. I actually videotape my own move.
Oh, cool.
So I have some background with Taekwondo. Mm-hmm. So I had Jack Lowe videotape me at the parking lot. So doing some front kick, side kick, jump kick, whatever that I can use for reference to animate that character.
Yeah, he's playing it down. He doesn't just have some experience. He is incredible in these.
Really?
Some of the moves that he would do were incredible, and he used a lot of that stuff to get film or to get pictures to inspire the characters to make sure they were built correctly. So don't play yourself down, Kich.
Yeah.
So,
We-
I also study, the Mortal Kombat and Street Fighter, how they did the stuff. But I told myself that, we can do better. So, especially, the fighting move. So I watch a lot of Kung Fu movie, I know how the sound and how everything, do all the punch.
It shows, man. Chinwo and Riptide are two of the best. I also could have easily picked her as a top 5. The animations and also how effective they were, like the combination of that. So they're wonderful characters he did.
Oh, I love to hear that. It's such an amazing stories. How about a finishing kill move? Have you got any favorites in the game?
I like the one that Rick mentioned earlier. The one that you got killed and then you lose a little bit, and then all of a sudden only the skeleton left, and then it's just turned into whatever. I really love that one.
And John, how about yourself? You got a favorite character and kill?
Riptide and Shadow, and then Dawson. I guess so. That's the main things. And then my favorite is Midnight and Dawson and the dinosaur. So I mean those were it. And then it's the chicken, and then the Senator finishing move was awesome too. And the theater one with the drive-by shooting was an amazing one too. So I mean we had a lot, and we had a lot that didn't make it too. So there was stuff that we wanted to do that we didn't get to do. And then if you go ahead, sorry.
Oh, I was just going to say honorary mention. I mean, there's so many great kills in the game. Sometimes they're just ridiculous and like, come on, stop. And so the vendettas, right? These are the fatalities, right? And so Larson's was he would just basically grab you by the scruff of your shirt and pull out that side, and he would just stab you, and there'd be blood, and he'd go, and it would keep stabbing like it was long. I'm like, dude, he's dead already, and you sit there and just watch it go. It's like it's just everything's always extra, and that one's another one where like, dude, this is like 30 seconds of stabbing.
That was the entire point. The point was you're playing with
over
your
the
friend,
top.
and you're like, I'm going to beat you. And then I'm going to continue to beat you and beat you and beat you. And they're like, okay, all right, geez, okay, you win. Okay, please stop. Okay, please. And that's kind of like the mentality of how the team was. We used to have so much fun working with each other. We would just make fun of each other and just take everything to an extreme, and it came out.
So to your point, Frank, there's you guys probably don't know this, was that during this would definitely be the Sega CD version. I would have huge barbecues on my place of the QA team, and there'd be like 15, 16, 20 people. And we would play, we had tournament mode, right? So you could play like 16 people, and we would play each other. And also there's a version called Expert where you get more points for kills, right? And so the one particular moment, which is why I'm mentioning this, was that I was beating somebody, and we're on the ship, Riptide's ship. And everyone knew where that trigger was for the shark. And as I'm kind of keeping them on that side, I'm beating them down, their health's going down. Everyone's going, shark, 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 like the entire room. And when I finally get it and he goes into the water, everyone goes, yay! And so, yeah, Frank, to your point, like you're setting them up and they're watching it happen. And the person's just kind of dejected watching their character get murdered. So those were the best. There's no game, even now, that comes close.
Well, even going to Sega Test, talking about we consumed the entire Sega Test with this game. And another big part of this thing, which doesn't seem to happen as much nowadays, is Test was also kind of an integral part of our team. They'd call us back and tell us, this didn't work or that didn't work or stuff like that. And then it just was basically the whole Test, the development, marketing, everything was part of the team. Whereas a lot of games nowadays, Test is in a vacuum, marketing's in a vacuum, nobody knows what's going on. And it was basically a group effort by a lot of Sega to make this thing successful. And
and our on-site testers, John, right? Like we had of course we had like Ray Alvarez and Jeff Junio, but then of course rest in peace, my best friend at the time, Harry Chavez. You guys all know him. He was there for both Genesis and Sega CD version. Also worked midnight hours, like all the time to the death. And yeah, so there was a lot of QA.
Yeah, David Wood, Mark Griffin, Mark Sabatnik, all those guys, and
all those guys.
They
We're all legends now, by the way. Yeah.
Yeah, they all gave input on this game sometimes when we had things too, and then there was a lot of cinematics in the sequel too. So that, I don't know if you remember that deep water opening. That was a very hard thing to do, and we had to do. I think that took us months to do that rendering back then, and we were using SGIs and all this stuff. But that was a pain in the ass to make the deep water opening, because we were going to be doing a bunch of other stuff under deep water, but unfortunately that didn't happen. But that was kind of building that brand.
Right.
I've got to ask actually, because obviously it was a very successful game on the Genesis, and it was a successful game on the Mega CD, but it never made it to the arcades. I'd love to. At the time, Sega was huge in the arcades. You know, you'd think with Mortal Kombat and Street Fighter, it really could have been a really good arcade game as well. Was there any reason why it wasn't an arcade game? And do you think really that was a mistake by Sega? I'd love to know. This is open to anyone, really. I don't know if anyone knows.
Yeah, I can kind of answer that. I mean, there's a big power struggle that happens with Japanese companies all the time. So there comes to be the American team, the Europe team, the Japan team comes and washes away what progress has happened. So Sega had that happening at the same time. So when we finished this, everything was kind of pushed towards Saturn and 32X, and that was the next thing. Arcade was actually a separate group, but our team worked with Arcade on Star Wars later. But bringing this to arcades would have been a great thing, but we were getting some pushback actually from Japan. That's why if you want me to jump to why the Saturn thing really didn't happen, was because Sega was actually pushing their arcade stuff. So Virtua Fighter was the king of their stuff. So Japan was actually pushing much harder on the stuff, and that's why we kind of got shut down for the sequel for the Saturn and so forth, because we were overshadowing what they thought Virtua Fighter was the king of this. And for the American market, I mean, we were the king of the Sega fighting games from Sega corporate, not third parties, if you want to talk about Mortal Kombat and Street Fighter. But we were something that I guess they should have believed in more, and Japan kind of shut that down with the Virtua Fighter is what happened with that. Now going to arcade, we would have loved to do it. We had some ideas for that, but it wasn't possible because we're the Sega of America entity. We're not Sega corporate of Japan. And Sega corporate of Japan is actually run by two separate entities, which is arcade and then the console. And now they're actually completely different companies. So even today, if we wanted to try to do it, you really can't. And then it'd be great to do it, but it's wasn't possible back then.
I mean, talking about a hill to climb, because we couldn't even kind of segue. And also, I think you kind of answered why we didn't do the sequel on the Saturn was because they didn't want to compete with Virtua Fighter. Imagine we're like, oh, you don't want us to compete with Virtua Fighter. Okay, now we want to put our machine next to Virtua Fighter in the arcades, right? So that would have been an even tougher sell, I think, as much as we all would have loved it. And the stupid thing is, and everyone here probably knows, is that it's a different type of game. It's a totally different type of game.
Like, it's sumo fighting, basically.
And people play more than one fight at a time, one fighting game, I mean. But it was also, like you said, it was a lot of politics and, so bad timing that Sega of America was weaker at that point. And so Sega Japan said, okay, we make all the calls now.
It's a big shame. Before I talk about the sort of unreleased games, there were two spin-off games actually released called Chicago Syndicate and Experts. Now, I haven't played them games personally, but I was just wondering, did anyone in this room worked on those particular games, and how do you think about those kind of spin-off games compared to the traditional fighting games? And the reviews weren't particularly good for either of them. I don't want to bring the house down a bit here, but what's your sort of view? It did sort of extend the life of Eternal Champions in some ways, but do you think it was generally a good or bad thing?
I was assistant producer on both, and they were both horrible.
Right.
So the Game Gear version was over-designed by, I forget the name of the producer's gentleman from England. It's one of those things where, I guess I'll make it fun by just having tons of detail and tons of features, where like, that's not the game. It's not fun. And also the implementation, it's really tiny Larson. So it was a slog. So that one was a slog. Okay, so that was Chicago Syndicate, and then Experts was very much inspired by, wow, Donkey Kong, look what they can do with that. Let's do something like that, but have like this cool spy espionage and throw in Shadow, who's in charge of this espionage group. The graphics, they were nowhere near the ability. This is on a 32X. There's nowhere near the ability of the machines to handle that. And they could not have enough frames of animation. And everything was just a mess. It looked bad. It played bad. I was really depressed that it ever saw the light of day. But that's business. We're like, well, let's just get it out, right? Because you want spin-offs or sequels to be cool, right? It's like kind of the so that's my experience with those two. I don't know if anyone else have played the other ones or if anyone has more insight, but that was my experience.
No, I mean, we had absolutely nothing to do with those, which is kind of interesting, right? Because I would have expected if they were going to do anything with Eternal Champions with that license, do you think they would come to the development team that worked on Eternal Champions and Challenge for the Dark Side? But they did not. So we had no involvement in it at all. So I don't have.
It shows.
It showed. Oh, but we're not here to be negative to the other people that work really, but
so in defense, quick in defense of both. So Chicago Syndicate, he was told make a game like this, and he said, okay, well I will design a game based on what you told me, and he did his best effort. Okay, and then Experts was just over ambitious. We couldn't handle the team, and the technology at the time just wasn't there. So I just in defense of those people.
Yeah. I mean.
Well, 32X was a stopgap for Saturn, and we really only had a 1-year target for anything, so nobody really got to learn it either. So,
you did mention, John, you hinted that there was some work done on Eternal Champions 3. We can call it the third game in the series.
Well, we made a lot of pitches and a lot of design docs for what would have been the Saturn one, and then we were working on other stuff after we left Sega, because after we left Sega, they pretty much told us they didn't care about this product. So we actually, somewhat are still carrying the torch on these things. And we've been working on some other stuff that eventually may come out, but we're still talking about it. And me and John have worked on this thing for quite some time. And me and John still talk about what we want to do next and so forth. And then Frank and Kich, we talked a little bit about this. I've talked to Erik about this too. And then that's about what I want to say about it right this minute. But we when Sega basically moved everything up to Northern California, me and my teams all left, and they told us that they weren't really interested in our products, and so the rights of these things technically kind of reverted back to us, but we're still in negotiations with that right now.
That's really interesting. But just to be really clear, then the Sega Saturn game, there was never actually like a prototype made. It was more sort of just ideas, or
there was some stuff, but not actual running code. There was design documents, and then there was some models done, and then there was some concept stuff. But we got shut down so early because of the Saturn. It did make some of that concept stuff did make it on the Saturn box. I mean, you can see that stuff. So if you look at a Saturn box, there is an image of the Eternal Champion on the box, and it talks about Eternal Champions 3. But I think we kind of got blindsided by Japan's pushback over it, because SOA and Kalinsky and the presidents at the time were all pushing towards the Saturn, and this would be one of their kick-ass titles for Saturn. And then when Sega's management of Japan kind of took over the show, if you want to call it that, we didn't really have much say. And then if you look at the catalog, really changed for Saturn. It became really Japan-centric titles. There wasn't many other than I think Bug was one of the US titles, and that was Steve Apoor's, wasn't it? The Bug was Steve Apoor?
That's Bug. I think, I mean, I don't know if it's Ed and Nunziata through Steve Apoor, how that worked, but we had that.
Yeah.
Three Dirty Dwarves. We had Mr. Bones.
Yeah.
A few.
And then those titles, those have been in development for a while. But after that, they pretty much pushed Virtual Fighter, and they told us, no. And that was kind of a shocker to us at that point, because we were pretty well committed to doing that at that time. We were working on a few other titles for Saturn, but we really fully expected to go forward with Eternal. And then we had even had a alternate for Eternal if they didn't want to do it, but it was super over the top and super gory, and it would have been a Cinnabite type game, which I was trying
Wow.
to get the rights to, but we didn't.
The Hellraiser.
Yeah, it would have been a Hellraiser type game, but that didn't happen either. So
that sounds awesome.
basically Japan shut us down because of Virtua Fighter. That's basically what happened.
And just to make it clear, John, the Virtua Fighter 3 would have been a 2D fighting game, not 3D. Is that fair, or would you have gone?
You mean Eternal Champions?
Eternal
Eternal
Champions 3.
Champions,
Yeah, no, Eternal Champions 3 would have possibly been 3D.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Mike, so what I know, because I didn't want to interrupt John, what I know from Mike was that he definitely wanted to go 3D, and he also wanted to do a new fighting system, which kind of scared me because it took us so long to get the one we had right. But I mean, that's Mike's kind of proclivity. He likes things that are new and different. But he was definitely going to go 3D, and also everyone had to go 3D back then. I would have wanted to because I think it would have been a beautiful 2D game on Saturn. But anyway.
But yeah, well, the big thing with Saturn 2 is that we kind of got, I guess, hit by a bus with PlayStation, because Saturn really wasn't a 3D machine. Saturn was really a scaling sprite machine. It was like the ultimate scaling sprite machine. And if you look at some of the arcade games that came to it, I think there's a Marvel X-Men fighting game that's incredible on the Saturn. And it's because it's basically a copy of the arcade game. And it has the insane horsepower to push giant scaling sprites. And that was kind of the downfall of the Saturn, in that you couldn't really do 3D. And the other was that we also were at the time, and a lot of people don't know this about game consoles, but we were at this time where RAM became a crazy price. So the RAM in the Saturn got reduced. The same with the 32X happened. RAM got reduced, and there was some fire in Japan or something at the time, and then the RAM foundry couldn't supply the RAM at a reasonable price. And even Saturn, right before launch, almost lost the CD because of pricing. And then there was another platform, which was called there's Titan and there's Mars, and people talk about Mars and Titan, but we were working on some of that stuff. So we had a Mars box and we had a Titan box, and what the Titan is a cartridge based Saturn, which people think that's the expansion cartridge. There was possibility the Saturn would have come with a CD, and it would have just been a cartridge based game system at one point.
That's incredible. I didn't know that.
So
and
then with what Mars was,
Sega's lawyers are on the phone.
yeah. But that's stuff that we had, down there, because we were pretty much like we were working on a lot of hardware that never saw the light of day. So
that's really interesting.
That was something that was going on.
And before, because you're probably going to go to a next question, Adrian, was one of the biggest. I'm thrilled that especially the Sega CD version was released and was what it was, but the ability for us to have taken a team with pedigree and experience in a fighting game and move them over to the Saturn with Eternal. I mean, this could have been a long-term thing. Like, oh, this studio is known for fighting games. They've done Eternal Champions for X amount of years. And that's the one thing that makes me sad, because people come and go, I know, but for the people who would have stayed at Sega Interactive and continue to make this game, iterations of it, it could have been freaking the balls. It could have been amazing.
Yeah. Well, it's the one thing a lot of people don't realize too, is once you've got a team that clicks, it took years to get that team to click together and everything. And then a lot of the development goes nowadays, people are like, oh, you use Unreal Engine, you use Unity, and they just think you plug people into it like Legos. Once you've got the core team that can actually do this stuff, it took a long time to get there. And if you want to do the same thing again, it's better to do it with the same people than it is to bring in a whole new crew and just believe, oh, you gave them a code base and they can do this, because you lose the flavor. It looks and smells like chocolate, but it tastes like paint. That's basically what I'm trying to say. So
and what a lot of people didn't realize either is that team had history a significant number of that team had history before they ever started working at Sega or Interactive Designs. I mean, I met John Kwai and on an old BBS that I ran out of my house when I was a kid. It was an old Apple II BBS, and that's where I met John Kwai. And he was a programmer on my BBS, and we used to make little modules for my BBS. Ayla Diaz was another user of that BBS that we knew, and so Chris Warner was another person. So Chris Warner, Ayla Diaz, myself, John Kwai, we had. I guess I'm just going to say
The
it.
friendship
Hacker,
in history, yeah.
Hacker circle background before Sega ever happened.
Yeah, the same year. On the art side, I actually went to the same high school as Art Wong, so that was one of the reasons he hooked me up to Sega. And cool, when I started there, I begin to see a lot of familiar faces from school, art center. And it's like a family to me, and it was great.
It was a different time. Like nowadays,
I hope that you guys, one of the leader, Eric or John, can make this happen again. Maybe we can get together.
I'm down.
Yeah, I want to. I mean, it's just someday we will do it. I actually have been by our old building is still there. It's some doctor's office now.
Oh, wow.
And I went by the building on the hill, and it's the headquarters of El Pollo Loco or something next to our old building on the hill now.
Hilarious.
But yeah, all that stuff's still there. And it was a great time. And even that dumb hotel we stayed at when we were working on this thing, the hotel on the hill.
Oh, yeah. Hotel we were.
The Radisson.
The Radisson, the Radisson, yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
We had the nice one over there.
We used to call it the Rat Ass Inn. Is what
I wasn't going to say it,
but yeah.
Yeah, me and Ayla had this room where because we couldn't go home, because we were just working all the time. But we had a room when it had the spotlight, and those big exterior lights that illuminate the sides of the hotel. The room that they gave us was the room with the spotlight in it. So it was like it was day when it was night. It didn't matter. It was just
Well, that other thing I was gonna say, I will abbreviate what this is, but Frank, that thing with Ayla, and remember when we were finishing the game, and then Ayla didn't show up for a few days, and I had to fight with HR to keep Ayla on because there's that automatic firing thing, and just everybody was so burned up at the end there. We had some people that disappeared for a few days, and then Sega had a mandatory thing where if you were missing for I think it was like 5 days, they automatically fired. But Ayla was pretty important for some of the stuff that he was working on, but Ayla was burned out and disappeared for a few days. And then you went with me, Frank, or was it somebody else that went with me to find him?
Okay, so there were multiple occasions this happened, but one time he comes in and I'm a zombie, and he goes, "Go get Ayla." And I was like, what? He's like, "Go get Ayla." And it was just, I'm not explaining, where there was a time to talk and a time to debate and a time not to. It was not a time to debate. It was, okay, I'm going to go get Ayla. So I got in my car, and I didn't really know about the HR part. Because John,
I didn't tell you guys, but that's what it was. I was dealing with that. So
I went and I drove, because me and Ayla, we knew each other before Sega. And I drove over to his apartment and got into his apartment and dragged him out of bed. I mean, I literally just dragged him out, and we sat there, and I woke him up and it was like made him rush to get ready, and then got in the car, drove him to work. I mean, and the thing is that he had been working so much and so hard that he's like, what day is it?
Oh, no.
Who am I? And I'm like, dude, you haven't been to work in like 2 days. He's like, what?
Oh, wow.
Oh, my God.
Yeah. It's crazy how that was normal, right? Like that. I'm glad that's not normal anymore. So when Chavez and I, we were staying at the Shiloh, I said Sofitel, it's called the Shiloh. And we had worked all day. It was like 11 at night or something, like, okay, go ahead and wrap it up. we were sharing a room. We had our two beds, and we're asleep. The lights off. Ring, ring, ring. Brandstetter. We found another crash bug. We need to come in. And Chavez could hear John's voice on the phone, and Chavez goes, "No!" like it was a soulful, real cry of pain. And of course, we went back. Right. I started drinking coffee because of the Genesis version. I never drank coffee before. And Mark Laksha, the other producer who was working on it before, he said, "Here, drink this." I'm like, "Oh, I hate coffee," and then now I'm addicted to it. But it was tough for a lot of people, a lot of hours, a lot.
Fair enough, guys. I love hearing these stories. It's so great. And John, you kind of hinted that maybe it's not the end of Eternal Champions. And actually, earlier this year, I think we heard some very surprising news, for me at least. I was quite shocked when there might be some big rumors that there might be a movie based on Eternal Champions. Now, I don't know how close this is going to happen. I hope it does. It'd be really good to get people back and think about Eternal Champions again. But do you guys know anything about this? Is it happening? Is it rumors or?
We think it's happening, but they didn't really talk to us about it. We're talking to them about it because they really didn't notify us. I do know how this happened, and Sega has a lot of problems with a lot of IP because they have went and launched a lot of IP that they may not own. So that's something that's why some of their stuff's held up right now. But we are kind of actively talking to them about this because we think we should be involved in this. And also we were told when we got shut down that by the president of Sega, because he's the one that shut down Sega of LA, which is Shuji, that they didn't really care about any of the products we were working on, and we were able to do what we wanted with it. So we also are looking into that and seeing where that's going to go. But as far as I know right now, I do know that they tentatively signed a deal with Legendary, but nobody has talked to us about it really. And I do know that the writer is supposedly the guy who wrote that new Jurassic Park movie, but I'm not too sure about much else than that. And we have some people that are talking to them that we really can't talk about much more than that, but we have people that are actively talking to them right now and seeing where this will go and then where we're going to go with what we want to do ourselves later. But the team is pretty much, I think, if we do go forward with doing something, everybody on this call is probably going to be involved in the new one if we do resurrect this thing. And we've been trying to resurrect it for years, and we have a few designs that me and John have written, and we wanted to do it. It just hasn't been the right time, or some of us were busy with other family matters and nightmares, but eventually we will do it. And I think that the world market for gaming is changing, so I think it's going to be the right time soon. And I think that I'm sick of the same game everybody sees, but everybody could say a fighting game is same fighting game. But I mean, how many times can I play Halo, or how many times can I play the same first person shooter game over and over and over? I'd like to see something classic come back. And I think that if you look at how Nintendo's kind of cleaning everybody's clocks right now with the new Switch 2 versus what's Xbox, I don't know what they're doing. And then PlayStation's got some good stuff, but Xbox, I can play that game somewhere else. So why bother? So I think that is a big problem. And you hear, the executives at Microsoft, keep talking about this and that, but why do they keep saying that they're doing bad? Like your platform, you could keep saying like we're number one, but they don't. They say, we're coming out with some new hardware because what was wrong with the old hardware? Switch 2 is based on 10-year-old hardware, and it's great. It's not the hardware, it's the games.
It's the game. 100%.
And then this whole thing with the AAA studios all exploding, and sorry to get off track, is that you can't make a AAA game in saying that it's AAA because you call it AAA. It's AAA because it's great. It's not designed in as AAA. I mean, we try our best, but when we made Eternal, we wanted it to be the best game it was, and it did become the best game, but did we call it AAA? No, we were just making a great fighting game is what we were doing. And that's the problem with, I think, a lot of the games out there right now is that people, we're a AAA studio. Well, how are you AAA? You didn't make anything before. How is this game AAA? I don't get it. So that's just my opinion, but that's what I
Oh, yeah.
have to say about it. So
That's exactly right. A lot of people are defining AAA by budget. Is
Yeah.
it a $102 million, $250 million budget game? And just because you have that much money doesn't mean it's a AAA game. Sure, a lot of the studios like, well, I'm making Call of Duty 87 or Halo 42 or whatever. Not to take anything away from those titles, but the most important thing is the game itself. You want to make a great IP. That's what makes it AAA.
Yeah.
The budget, don't get me wrong, money does help, but money is not everything, as you're seeing right now with the implosion of a lot of these studios.
That's a fair point.
So if they make this movie, I just hope that it doesn't suck. Right.
Yeah.
And it would be nice if they could follow the story and the characters pretty well, because I could easily see them being like, oh, here's one character from the entire collection, and then we made up a bunch of other characters, right? And we use the title, but we changed that. And if they do it, please God, put some martial artists in those costumes, right? Don't have like a bunch of knuckleheads and make them look like they're doing martial arts.
Yeah.
Because Mortal Kombat is one of the best of the fighting game, because they had like Simon Ryu, who's a real good martial artist. They had several good martial artists in those movies. So I only hope that doesn't suck, that it has kind of eternal champions and martial arts, so we can have some great fight scenes, right?
Yeah.
So
and they should work with the guys who made the game, because we're the ones that know the story and the thing. And it just seems like if they do it without us, it's going to be one of those things that's made in a vacuum that it just says eternal champions, and it's who knows what it is. It's not even the same thing or nothing, or it wouldn't even be based on somebody who we would pick as the actors to portray these characters, because there are quite a few people that could fit these actors and would be good fits, but we see all these licensed things, because there's kind of this feeding frenzy for video games, make good movie for money, or money for movies, and it's too much. They're just kind of trying to cash in on it right now.
Yeah.
So that's one of the fears, and that's why we've kind of stepped up and said, hey, we really can't do this without talking to us. So that's one thing, because I don't want it to look bad on us, because it was our game. So
I guess in an ideal world, the movie will be a huge success, and you guys will be involved in some of it at least, and put them in the right direction at the very least, and it would coincide with a release of a brand new game as well. I mean, that's, as a fan who really enjoyed the initial game, I would love to see that. I'd love to see the IP, I hate to say it, resurrected.
That
back
makes sense too, because a lot of these movies come out that could have had a game, and then they come out with a game 5 years after the movie. So what was the point? That's right.
Yeah.
So
I see Chin Woo can be played by Jackie Chan.
So, or maybe you, Kich. Maybe you.
Yeah.
What about IP Man, Kich? What about him?
Yeah, maybe him. But I think
I remember
can do better monkey style.
One thing I remember, by the way, Kich, is it true? I had heard before that like Chin Wo, that's a real name. Like, is that a proper name, or is that, because I'd heard it wasn't? Because Mike Latham wrote that name, Chin Wo.
I got it like Chin Woo with a W-O, but somehow I begin to see like another name like W-O-O.
Right. So is that a proper name? Because I'd heard that.
Yeah. I know it's a Chin Woo, but the spelling is either the last name will be like W-O or W-O-O.
Yeah. In our game, it's W-O.
Yeah.
In our game. So I just want to bring that up because I wasn't sure. I remember I heard many times people say that's not a real, name for that nationality, right? And it's like, oh, okay.
And Erik, I remember that you brought in the tape, the monkey tape, and showed me, and we had a little meeting that you showed me how to recognize those monkey style, and I studied from that.
Yeah,
and that's how I come up with the move.
Oh yeah, I mean he is one of the best characters, and well, people that are listening don't know is that we used fighting tapes for reference as well. Now I know Kich for Riptide, but we used because we didn't do rotoscoping and certainly didn't do motion capture. So they would take the pictures and, oh, okay, we'll do it like that. And that was the reference.
Well, you
and
were a lot of the times a reference, Eric. You would send me all these things that you're doing. Yeah.
I did do some stuff,
Yeah.
but most of it was those videos, and then also just interacting with the animators to make sure that, you know, we extend that, you know, so that it has this effectiveness in this way. Doesn't have to be perfect for the martial art, but has to also work for the game.
Yeah, and we used to use a thing called a video printer, which people probably even know what that is, but it's the Epson video printer, or Sony video printer. Yeah, and we would print out the frames from these videos and then use that as kind of like, oh, that's the way we want to draw the character. So that, most people never heard of a video printer, I guess, but it's a thing you hook to a TV and you can print pictures from the TV.
Those were all over QA. Like those, when you guys weren't, when we're done with them, we all had pictures of the martial arts doing all the moves all over our cubes. Those little, because they're like little postcard size.
Yeah, like 4x10 kind of. Yeah. But yeah.
Look, guys, it's been amazing. I've got a couple of questions left, if that's all right, just to sort of finish things up. And I've had such a fun time, actually. It's absolutely incredible getting this opportunity. I don't think this happens too often, actually. Obviously, sadly, one person that can't be here is Michael Latham, and he's shared with me before like a big 2.5 hour episode before he passed away, obviously, about working on this game and his career, and it was absolutely incredible interview. I don't like to pat myself on the back. He did all the work, really, but he had an incredible career at SEGA, and he shared some amazing stories. And obviously, when you mention Eternal Champions, you can't really not mention Michael Latham, because he was a huge part of that. I'd just love to sort of go around the room, if that's all right, and maybe you can share like a memory or like a story with Michael working on Eternal Champions, or another game at SEGA. It doesn't have to be necessarily about Eternal Champions, but just to sort of, keep his legacy alive. Eric, I've asked you many, many times, but do you want to start things off and maybe reflect?
Because I have one specific Eternal Champions story, and then one kind of overall kind of comment about him that, now that sometimes Ben, since he's passed, and again, I'm older, that I think I have a nice kind of thing to share about him. So when we were doing, I think it was Genesis version, when Chavez and I, again, were at the Sheila Hotel, and Mike would come every weekend. He'd usually fly in, and he'd come in and he would play against us, right? Because we're working on the game. And he was pretty good, even though he didn't play as much as us. But the thing I remember was that he came in and he smoked Chavez, and then he played me, and I smoked him. I got like some kind of kill on him, and he was laughing so hard he fell off the bed. And so just that moment, what's so great about it, I mean, people lose and people fall off beds, was this, we're like kids. It's like 3 kids. He was not even 30 yet at this point. And we were just having a great time, making a great game. And we, schooled our boss, and he was just laughing his ass off. And he had this wonderful, playful, game-loving mindset in the background of all of this hardcore business acumen that he had, right? Because he's also very technical and very business-focused and all that, but he had that part of him that was very much him, which I think motivated him in many ways. And then the big thing I want to mention was, I don't know if you guys know who Jim Shooter is. He was a editor at Marvel Comics for a while, and he brought him back from the grave when they were struggling in the 70s, and brought in a lot of really good artists and storytellers, and did a lot of great things, and built a business up and established a lot of great things. But he wasn't really popular. He had to push people around to make sure that things got done, because people didn't like the way that he was doing it, because there are a lot of creatives, and creatives can be kind of sensitive. But he got great things done. And in a lot of ways, I would say Mike, a lot of us loved him. I did. But he did rub people the wrong way. But I think a lot of that was because he always had a goal in mind. I think he was trying to make sure that these great products, these great franchises, this company, that each of us would do well. And so I think he was so driven that he may have rubbed some people the wrong way, but it was only because he was trying to do his best for the games and the company. And so, again, I'll go back. He's a great person, but that anybody who was rubbed the wrong way, I think it was from a place of him trying to do a good job.
Thank you, Eric. Yeah, and you spoke quite a lot about him in the past, so I appreciate keeping that going. Frank, have you got any memories of working with Michael?
I do. I mean, I have to be very honest that my exposure to him was limited. That was primarily John Brandstetter, who was the voice of our team as a whole, to be very blunt. But but I will kind of riff on what Erik was saying here. What I do remember very distinctly is that it took me years in my career before I kind of looked back and realized some of these things, right? Because when you're 19, 20 years old and you're working on a video game, you think very differently when you're 30, going into your 40s, whatever. But he had a vision, he had an idea of what he wanted to do, how he wanted to execute, what he wanted it to be. And we were on the development side. We were trying to make those things happen from a technical standpoint, from an artistic standpoint, from a design standpoint. And he was on the publishing side. He had a vision, an idea. So a lot of the conflict that arose was us understanding, us trying to get him to understand the technical limitations of what could and could not be done, cartridge size, memory limitations, color limitations, whatever it may be. And the negatives were usually a result of that. It wasn't, that there was like tension. It was, how can we creatively take this thing forward? How can we do better? How we can achieve? How can we make the overall product good? Because the better the product was, the more likely it would sell. The more likely it would sell, the more money we'd make. The more likely we were able to do sequels. And it's the first Eternal Champions launched. And I remember when I walked into the office one day, there was a big piece of paper, and it was like pinned to the wall, and it was, we just shipped our first. I think it's our first 750,000 unit cartridge run. And that was like, and I looked at it, I was just like, oh my, and I was really proud of that, but it was because people like Mike, were unwilling to compromise on quality. But at the same time, John was unwilling to compromise on what could and could not be done. And the balance between those two people, in my opinion, is what made this thing as good as it was. And without Latham being as I'm not sure the word for it, but as strong-willed as he was, I think we would have had a crappy game.
I really appreciate. Yeah, great. And Kich, have you got a story like on Michael?
Yes. I remember he took us all out to eat, and in my mind, he was a pretty good, nice person, and I just didn't get much chance to communicate with him directly because John was representing us, and he did all of the communication, but I remember that every time that we hear the news, usually from John, that Mike Latham's going to come and visit us, and we were so excited, and we tried to do something like not to joke around, like be more serious, try to put together things, so add more stuff, whatever, try to impress him on the art side, especially stuff that I was working on, and that's what I remember. Try to do things to impress John, the team, and also Mike Latham and Erik when they come to visit us once in a while, and yeah.
Thank you. And John, you had a very, very big role with Michael, obviously. Would you be happy to share a few stories?
Yeah, I mean, I'm one of those guys that Mike rubs the wrong way sometimes, but we saw through it and then we worked it out. But basically, Mike had his idea for some things, and then I had my ideas for some things, and then we kind of hashed it out together and figured it out. Sometimes neither one of us was happy, but in the end, we came up with a great product. But we did have instances where Mike wanted something that was impossible, or he had some things that weren't, I guess I would call, unreasonable, and but we worked through it and got through it. But that's with any type of gaming or production. You're going to have producers and designers and the idea guys, which me and Mike and Erik are all three of those guys. And sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't work. And then there was times where we felt like we might have let each other down, like we needed the character bios, and Mike was supposed to give them to me, and then he didn't, and then I had to magically create them in the next 2 days because they had to go in the game. But Mike was very interesting character, and he was Mike, and there's no one like Mike that I've ever worked with besides him. And then him pushing me on some things, made the game great. Me pushing back on him, I think, also made the game also great. And he's missed, and I think that he contributes greatly to this product. And I think that some of the stuff that me and him argued about was just business, and that's the way it worked. And he was great. He had his opinion, and I had my opinion from my experience, and it both worked out, and this turned out to be a great thing. And what Frank and Kich are talking about was basically I was the firewall against
Right.
the team, because he'd bring the flamethrower to me about some things, and I couldn't bring that down to the team, otherwise it would have hurt the team. So we worked it out and figured it out, and here we came out with a great game, and Mike was a part of that. So that's basically
yeah. So I have one more funny story, and then something to mention too. So the funny story is, this is during, I think, the Genesis version, when, again, and I have something again really nice to say about him, because again, I owe my whole career to this guy, absolutely 100%. But the say was that at one point he was really rubbing the SEGA Interactive people the wrong way, because he was really pushing for everything in his design to get done, and they have their schedule and da-da-da. And so I'm pretty sure it's last hour, he showed the first credits list, and it rolls up and it says executive producer Mike Latham, lead designer Mike Latham, producer Mike Latham, lead programmer Mike Latham. Everything was Mike Latham.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
Which they showed him like was a tease, right? So that was funny. In a lot of ways, it's kind of true, to be honest, aside from just get too deep. But then the other thing is that he's also someone who, when he trusted you, he gave you his vulnerabilities. He allowed you to do stuff, like to have him say, go and overhaul add combos, add all these moves. You can be in charge of the moves of these characters. Figure out how the vendettas work. Like all these things he put on me, which I asked to do, and he let me do it, and he just let it happen. Because as someone who's as controlling as him, it would have been really easy for him to I want to see exactly what you're doing. I want to make comments and everything. But probably a lot of things with John as well, that he said, okay, I trust you. Here's some things I want to push you on, but I trust you in these other things.
Yeah.
So he was good at that. I think he was, which again speaks to his heart. He was someone who I can trust. I can trust you. I will allow you to do the things that you should do.
No,
I think it all worked out. So it was good. There were some instances, like you're talking about that thing with Steve. I got the other end of that call, which was basically you need to hand Steve his head, but that wasn't that didn't happen. But yeah.
Well, so we may miss this because you're doing your questions, Adrian. But I have one thing that breaks my heart about the game, even the CD game, which somehow kind of also speaks to what Frank was talking about. I was super focused on making sure every character, every move had its place, that it wasn't too overpowered, wasn't underpowered, it was useful, it was balanced, and we're doing lots of versus combat with other testers, with my buddies on site. I let the AI be whatever the AI was. And unless you were someone who played the game every damn day from day one, the AI was, I'm going to cuss one time in your podcast here, it was fucking hard. Like I could beat it, but so many people disliked our game because they would get their asses handed to them. And this is back in the 90s when you had continues and you had game overs. And so you couldn't keep playing until I beat it. It's like, no, you're not. Go back to the beginning, punk. Right. And so that's my only sad part, is that we allowed the AI to be monstrous.
Oh my God. Well, I'm sorry. I remember, if I remember correctly, Ayla was working on the AI for the Eternal Champion, and it was so hard that nobody had beaten it. And they were fearful they're like, we got to launch this game, but we can't launch the game if no one's actually beaten it. So we need verification that someone has actually beaten it. And I think that was Ayla that was right. Correct me if I'm wrong, John, but
no, that's right. And then that's where I was fighting with Test, because I was getting pushback from Test, and I said, well, you know what? You need to get some better testers. That was thing. And it's like, look, we're shipping this thing, and you guys got to figure it out, and you guys can send somebody down here. And I think that's when we got God, who was it? We had two additional testers come down to us. I think it was
Jeff Unio and Ray Alvarez joined me.
Yeah, and that was because I was telling corporate, look, it can be finished by our team down here, so what is wrong with your test team up there? And then I got some pushback from corporate, but I was just like, look, this is it, and this game's hard, and that's what it's supposed to be. Maybe it was too hard, but you could finish it. We had people that could finish it, and we had the test team saying, oh, well, we can't finish it. And then I just said, well, then you need better testers. And that came back. That came back to me a couple times.
You're part of the problem, John. You're part of the problem.
I know. Yeah.
I was able to beat it. Ailey was able to beat it. We beat it pretty damn consistently. Just saying.
And Kawhi was beating it all day long. Yeah.
John was like one-handing it, just doing this to it. So yeah.
I love it. Yeah, I mean, it was a tough game. I never completed as a kid. I used to play against my brothers often. The single player I found very hard, and I'm not going to lie, it was challenging.
Yeah, I have lots of industry friends that come to me that tell me they played this game, and a good friend of mine is one of the founders of Twitch. I don't know if you know who John Carnage is, but John is a good friend of mine. And then he tells me, "Oh, you made that game?" I'm like, yeah. Oh my god! And like, you didn't know that? He was just all over me about it. And there's other people that sometimes come out out of nowhere that tell you, "Oh, I love this game." Like, "Oh yeah, I'm one of the guys that made this game." It's just kind of crazy that it's people still playing this game today. So
if you look it up on YouTube, there are still so many videos of that game and retrospectives and everything. It's definitely beloved in its niche. It really is. It's but what I dislike is that a lot of these guys they like, oh, let's just put Eternal Champions in. They don't look at the rule set, they don't look at anything, and because our AI is tough, they're like, this game's cheap, this sucks, this game sucks, guys, don't buy it, don't bother, we're all crappy.
Yeah.
They take time. But some people like, again, Maximilian Dude, who love the hell out of the game, and several other like Kim Justice who went through, they really broke it down really well from the history to the gameplay, all the nuances, and then you see how this great game, it was appreciated. That again, you guys, thank you. You guys and the people aren't here.
God, I remember that. We were trying to break down gameplay. We were testing every single move and every single impact and how much it moved the player and how much damage it pixel by pixel over and over it. Oh my God.
I go on YouTube once in a while to look at just the video, and I still fall in love with the Riptide for some reason. The combo.
Yeah.
I sometimes question myself, like, oh, well, I did that. And
people can't see because Kich is sitting, but his build is a lot like Riptide. That joke, everybody.
Oh.
That pause was amazing. Where you guys all thought it was serious.
Oh my God!
Joke. My jokes are not hitting today, but that was another joke.
Is that your dad? Your dad jokes there? Yeah.
I guess so, yeah.
But
just hit a little low and it hit.
Yeah. The other thing too, I think a lot of people compare it to other fighting games when it's kind of every game's the Street Fighter and Mortal Kombat's a fighting. They're all fighting games, but we were not really trying to copy them. We're trying to be kind of our own unique thing, and I think we did do it. And I think that if people really do look at it, and people that do know this game know that it's a different game. It's not Street Fighter and it's not Mortal Kombat. And the people that have come to me years later and said, that's the reason I like this game, or that's why it stood out to me, and it was made for the Genesis, and we took advantage of it as much as possible. So we weren't like a port of Mortal Kombat or a port of Street Fighter, which suffered from being a port and weren't designed for that hardware. I mean, we basically sucked every drop of energy we could out of that machine, and same with Sega CD. So
build up the CD. Build up that CD 100%, including your little cube,
including the video. Well, we had to do that to fill it up. Yeah.
That's actually, now that you mentioned the Sega CD, I remember that. That's one of my memories of Mike Latham too, is because he's like, got the Sega CD and it's got so much room. And I'm like, yeah, but imagine you're trying to empty a swimming pool with a straw.
That was that character thing that you're talking about. Yeah.
It's swimming pool, lots of data, yes, but you got to get that from there.
Yeah,
to
64K
there
window, 64K
with
window. Yeah, yeah.
with that.
Oh,
And it was like, but
man.
do it. We're like, we're trying. We're working on it.
And you guys did, man. You guys freaking killed it. One of the best games I've ever worked on by far.
Yeah. Now, look, guys, Erik, Frank, John, Kich, it's been such a real honour. Again, I know nothing's official or confirmed yet, and I don't want to get you in trouble, John, but if people were interested to keep in the loop, if there was new Eternal Champions, is there a place they can visit on X or Facebook, or is there any, or just...
Yeah, not yet, but I mean, they could, you know, I'll let you know at a later date where we will be doing that, but we are actively working on some of that stuff right now. So
keep me posted, and I'm happy to share any information, because I think there's a place for a new game in the series. I really mean that. I feel that'd be awesome. But look, guys, it's obvious Eternal Champions was a great team. You know, it's a great game, a great team involved, and some of your story has been absolutely incredible today. It's just amazing getting everyone together. So the opportunity is incredible. So Erik, again, I just want to say thank you again, because you helped to organise this, and I know it's not an easy thing to do. I hope it was a bit good for you guys and reminisce about the good old days a bit as well. I know our listeners will be.
That was great. Yeah,
I loved it, and I've mentioned this before, but you know, at some point we're not going to be here anymore, and at some point people will be looking back at older games and be like, "Wow, there's all these interviews with all these dead guys who worked on these games. Let's see what they had to say about it." And so it's actually cool, and not in any way to make light of this wonderful man, Mike, that's no longer with us. But thanks to Adrian, we have these great long interviews with him, and that guy was very private for a long time. And so Arcade Attack has immortalized him in many ways, and many people are going to know what he did and what he's about. And now they know more about Eternal Champions. So thank you, Adrian.
Yeah. I mean, I still get comments today after that interview, and people are very, very nice about that particular interview. And obviously, you know, I'm sure you guys would recommend listening. I'll put a link in the show notes. And Erik, you gave me a massive interview about Eternal Champions, and people can't get enough of it. So it's a real honour. For all my guests, I always finish with a final question. It's a bit of a silly question, really, and I've probably asked you this question, Erik, about 2 or 3 times now. But if you can start it off, maybe Frank and John and Kich give me their own answers as well. But I'd love to know if you could share a few drinks, a few pints, a cocktail or two, possibly, with any video game character. Could be Eternal Champions, could be any video game character at all. Who would you choose and why? Now, obviously, Erik, you can change your answer up. You can give me someone new. But is there any character from the world of the video games you'd love to, you know, chew the fat and have a few drinks with?
Yeah, you know, one of my favorite games is Max Payne, the original one, because of storyline. And I would have loved to talk to this, you know, grim, pained badass in his kind of noir style of how he would communicate, and just kind of hear his perspective on things, and connect with him, and kind of hear more about his story, because that was very powerful for me, and be really interesting to know more about him.
I think that's a great game. And Mark Wahlberg, your namesake.
Yeah, exactly right.
Not Mark Wahlberg we're talking about.
It would have been a good movie if they would have got me instead.
Yeah,
no,
exactly.
Not really.
But I think Max Payne's a great answer. Quite a dark, broody person, but rightfully so. How about you, Frank? Is there any characters you'd love to have a chat with?
God, that is a tough question. Who you're asking me who I would have a pint? Who would I go have drinks with?
Oh yes.
Like get hammered night on the town, or
oh yeah.
Oh my god.
Old school style.
Oh my god. I you know what, I'm gonna stick with Eternal Champions, and I'd say I think me and Larson could go out and just get hammered together. Go like in the roaring 20s. You know, just go to visit some speakeasy, or you know, try not to get mowed down by Tommy guns.
Yeah. That's a good answer, though. Yeah, that's a real cool answer. Thank you. That last one was really interesting. How about you, Kit? How about you,
yes. For me, Riptide.
Yeah.
And the reason is I can go, I can walk. She's pretty, right? And she can fight.
Yeah.
And, I can she can challenge Larson, at the bar. Like Frank. Yeah, I'll walk with her anywhere.
There
Yeah.
you go. I love that answer. Yeah. How about you, John? Any particular character from any video game?
If it was Eternal, it'd be Ramses because I want to check out Egypt with him. But
Very good. Yeah.
Oh, that's a good answer.
if it wasn't that, I would say Mario. I would want to know why him and Peach aren't hooking up. What's going on?
That was it. Yeah. Yeah. No, Mario, that's a great answer. We all want to get to know what's going on there. Definitely. Well, look, guys, I'm gonna say goodbye very, very soon, but I just want to say thank you one last time. It is a real honor, real pleasure. A good almost 2 hours of your time. I hope it was. I hope you was enjoy. I loved it. Every minute was so enjoyable. Some of the stories, like I said, was incredible. You guys are all, in my eyes, Sega legends. I know you worked in other companies as well, but you guys have, we're massive Sega fans on Arcade Attack, and you guys really did help shape our childhoods. Big Mega Drive, Master System. I had a Dreamcast as well. I absolutely adored those systems, and I can speak for everyone from Arcade Attack that we really appreciate all the games you've worked on, not just Eternal Champions, all the different things you worked on at Sega and before and after. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
You.
Yeah, it was a great time.
I really appreciate it, guys. Thank you, guys, and I'll see you very soon.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.